He was dying on the floor of his own apartment, and he wasn't thinking about death. He was thinking about the margin. The last thing he saw was the screen flashing red and his copper position crashing by 11%. And then he opened his eyes in a stranger's body, lying on a straw mattress with calluses on his hands. 25 years old, no name, no money, no family in an empire where a name is currency. 6 months ago, he sat in front of 4 monitors tracking oil futures. Not a genius, but good enough to pay for an apartment downtown and dine where no one looks at the price tag. And then he ordered Thai curry with shrimp. Allergy. Anaphylactic shock. The EpiPen was left at home. He was dying and thinking about his copper position. That says a lot about a person. Now his name is Cale Nolan, a rootless orphan taken in by the House of Valentine to haul bales of silk. Behind the wall, someone is counting the goods. His hands are calloused. And he has not a single lead in a world where titles are not inherited, but bought. Velkrand. A trading empire where money strikes harder than swords and magic. The 5 great houses control the economy. Valentine trades in silk. Caldera owns the mines. Montero mines crystals. Ashford forges weapons. Raymond controls the banks. Here, aristocracy isn't about blood. It's about the balance in your account. Marriages aren't about the heart either. They're a merger of assets, contracts, divorce penalties. And there is one law that hasn't been touched in 200 years. The law of the triune union. A single commoner man binds the 3 houses into a single block. Not an heir, not an aristocrat, a blank slate. The calculation is cynical and simple. A commoner husband makes no claim to assets. He doesn't vote in councils. He is a living seal on the contract. The 3 houses get an alliance without the risk of one family swallowing up another. Everyone is happy, except the husband. But who cares about the seal's opinion? They came for Kyle right at the warehouse. 2 lawyers in expensive coats. They talked for 40 minutes. He understood a third of it. The gist is simple. The 3 houses chose him not because he's special, but because he's a nobody, the perfect puppet. They asked if he agreed. But they asked in such a way that refusal wasn't an option. A penniless laborer against the will of the 3 great houses. Kyle nodded. And here he stands at the altar, trying to remember how he even ended up here. First wife, Victoria Valentine, 26, straight back, cold gray eyes. She looks at him as if he were a piece of furniture delivered to the wrong room. No warmth, no malice, just a fact. You're here, fine. The second, Isabel Caldera, 24, dark hair, a sharp gaze. She makes no effort to hide her irritation. She eyes him from head to toe and turns away. She shoots a quick glance at someone in her entourage. She's already discussed him behind his back. Third, Selena Montero, 23, blonde hair, a soft smile. The only one who even looks at him. But that smile means nothing. Or it means too much. Kyle can't tell. The ceremony lasts 20 minutes. No vows, no kisses, just signatures. 4 names, 4 seals. A lawyer reads the terms. Kyle has no claim to the assets. He doesn't vote on the board. He doesn't own property on behalf of the houses. He's a husband. Essentially, he's nothing. Then the banquet. 3 tables, 3 families. Cale sits alone on a 4th chair they pulled out of the back room. They gave him silverware from a different set. He eats in silence and watches. An old trader's habit. If you don't know what to do, watch the market. The market always speaks first. Victoria whispers something to the manager. She hides a piece of paper in her sleeve. Quickly, as if by habit. She's hiding something. Isabel is drinking her 3rd glass and laughing too loudly. But between laughs, her eyes scan the room, counting people. Who came? Who didn't? She's not as simple as she pretends to be. Selena smiles at everyone, evenly, the same way. No one gets more attention than their neighbor. This isn't friendliness, it's control. She's playing her game. Kayla is led into a room, not the wives' bedroom, a separate little cubbyhole in the guest wing. A bed, a table, a wardrobe. Better than a porter's cubbyhole, but humiliating for the husband of 3 aristocrats. He sits down. Silence. The day is finally over. And then it happens. Text flashes before his eyes. Gold letters on black, right in his mind, like a terminal, like that very screen with 4 monitors before death. Merchant cheat system. Activated. Market open. Play. Kyle freezes. His heart is pounding. Before him is an interface. Panels, charts, indices. It's madness. A stock market terminal inside his head. The system displays the first set of data. Current rank, novice, lowest level. 2 functions available. True price shows the real value of any commodity. Markup, margin, hidden costs, everything laid bare. And market forecast. Once a day. The trend for the month ahead. Something long forgotten stirs within him. Excitement. The cold excitement of a trader who sees an open position. A former commodities speculator has just received a tool that shows future prices. In a world where money is power, he lies down on the bed and smiles for the first time in 6 months in this body. The 3 houses took him as a pawn. They don't even suspect it. Morning. A knock at the door. Victoria's maid hands him a leather purse. Inside are 30 silver coins. Pocket money from the mistress. For a month. 30 silver coins in an empire where lunch at a decent place costs 2. Cale takes them and thanks her. An hour later, a messenger from Isabel. Another 30. Then a courier from Selena. 30. 90 silver coins. 3 wives. 3 handouts. Kyle looks at the coins. In his past life, that wouldn't even buy him a cup of coffee. He turns on the market forecast. For the first time, the system spits out data. Silk, monthly trend, 3 arrows pointing up, a sharp rise. The reason? Drought in the southern provinces. The silkworm harvest will drop by 40%. The market doesn't know yet. The exchanges will find out in 2 weeks. But Cale knows now. 90 silver. Silk that will quadruple in value in a month. He knows what to do. He always knew what to do. He just didn't have a terminal. Kyle steps out from the Valentine early in the morning. The date at the gate had even looked at his way. For them, he nobody. Husband on paper. A shadow without weight. It convenient. Shadows don't notice and shadows do not stop. The city Velkrand is waking up. The district is bustling. Stores are opening. Porters are hauling boxes. The smell of spices and tanned leather. Kyle knows this world 6 months, but retail quarter he learned in the first week. When you go, you see the underside of trade. Who is being transported? Where and where? What boxes is heavier than indicated on the waybills? This knowledge is worth more than any diploma. It goes to small market. Don't to the exchange where trade in bulk. That's it won't let him. To small market. Everyone. Here small sellers sell remaining of their stock. Tails, scraps. That didn't at the auction. Prices below market at 15–20%. Kyle activates true price. The board is changing. Over every counter, numbers. A roll of com of B. The seller asks 8 silver coins. The true price, 4.5. Markup, 70–80%. Another counter. Silk of A with A in the weave. The seller asks 12 silver coins. The true price is 11. Markup, 9%. Defect, cosmetic. 2 to the touch is distinguished from perfect. Kyle begins buying up. Not greedily, prudently. He takes only silk of A with minor defects. That 1 costs is its price. That who every a month when a drought strikes on production, it will cost 4 times as much. 90 silver coins. He buys everything. 8 rolls of A. Average price 11 silver per roll. It is negotiable. Not aggressively. Calmly. Takes all defective rolls from one seller and receives a discount for volume. 8 rolls for 86 silver. The remaining 4 silver coins. I go. Now we need a place for storage. Kyle recalls the warehouse. When he was a loader at Valentine, he knew every corner. There, one warehouse on outskirts of the district. Old, half empty. The owner is renting the place by 2 silver in month. Cheap, because that the roof is leaking. But for silk and oiled wrapping, this not a problem. Kyle rents a corner for 1 silver coin. For month. The owner is, and that. The silk is hidden. The money is invested. Position opened. Now wait. Kyle is coming back to the estate in evening. No one did notice his absence. None servant, nor wife. He invisible in his home. Next the day he summons Victoria. Office on 2nd floor. Dark wood. Solid table. Stacks of papers. Victoria sits at the table and doesn't take his eyes when he enters. She says that he is assigned, since once week, he will be present at family dinner at home. On Tuesdays, Valentine. On Thursdays, Caldera. On Saturdays, Montero. This a formality. He must sit, be quiet, not interfere. If anyone asks a question, answer briefly and politely. She still doesn't look at him. Kyle says that he understands. Victoria finally lifts her eyes. She looks at him for seconds. She assesses him and returns to his papers. The audience is over. Kyle exits and activates portrait deals. This function reads hidden motives. The system outputs data on Victoria. Loyalty to the subject is low. The dominant motive, control. Hidden stress is high. Financial pressure is critical. Red line. Will not allow interference in the house. Financial pressure is critical. Kyle remembers. Valentine. Valentine sells silk. This largest supplier to Empire. Or was the largest. Something not right with the finances. He doesn't know exactly. But the system has shown a crack. First dinner, Tuesday, Valentine's. Valentine, long table, 12 chairs. Victoria at head. On the right of her is mother. To the left, the manager of the house. Kayla has been a place at end of the table, between 2 younger cousins who giggle every time when he picks a fork. He is silent. He eats. He listens. Conversations about prices, about deliveries, about problems with the Southern Caravan. Kale catches snippets. The Southern Caravan is delayed by 3 weeks. No reason is given. The manager is nervous. Victoria is calm, but her fingers are clenching the napkin too tightly. After dinner, Kale returns to his room and activates the network of connections. The system's 4th function. Route map. Caravans. Shortages. The system displays a trade map of the region. The Valentine Southern Caravan. 32 bales of top-grade silk. Stuck at the Cornell Pass. Reason. Landslide. The detour will add 4 weeks. Silk spoils quickly when exposed to moisture. If the caravan takes the marshy detour, half the cargo will be ruined. Losses. 16 bales. Market value. 4,000 gold. 4,000 gold. For Kale, that's an astronomical sum. For House Valentine, this is also a serious blow, especially if the financial pressure is already critical. Kale lies in the dark and thinks. He has 8 rolls of silk in storage. In a month, they'll be worth 4 times as much. 3,500 gold pieces. That's a start. But it's not enough to become someone. He needs more information. He needs to understand the scale of each house's problem. Thursday, dinner at Caldera's. A different atmosphere. The House of Caldera isn't quiet halls and silk napkins. It's noise, loud voices, meat on the table in chunks. Wine is flowing. Isabel Caldera sits at the head of the table and drinks alongside her managers. She sees Kyle and smirks. She announces to everyone that their dowry husband has graced them with his presence. Laughter at the table. Kyle sits down. He is silent. He eats. Isabel pays him no attention for the rest of the evening. She discusses the mines. Production has fallen by 7% this quarter. One of the managers says that the vein in mine number 3 is running dry. New surveys are needed. Money for exploration. Isabel pounds her fist on the table. She says the money will be found. Her voice is confident. Her eyes are not. Cale activates the deal portrait on Isabel. Loyalty to the subject. Absent. Dominant motive. Survival of the Calder house. Hidden fear. Depletion of the resource base. Time horizon. 2 years until crisis. Red line. Any threat to the house's autonomy. 2 years. The Caldera mines will be depleted in 2 years, and Isabel knows it. Saturday. Dinner at the Monteroses. Quiet. Exquisite. Crystal chandeliers. Silverware. Selena Montero greets him at the door. In person. She smiles and says she's glad to see him. Cale doesn't believe her, but he notes that she's the only one who bothered to put on a show of hospitality. Dinner passes in silence. Selena eats little. She speaks softly. She asks Cale how he's been living at the Valentine estate. Cale replies that he's fine. Selena smiles. The same smile. Perfect. Impenetrable. After dinner, Cale activates the deal portrait. Selena Montero. Loyalty to subject. Undetermined. Hidden motive. Undetermined. Subject is unpredictable. Active external communication. Contact with House Ashford. Threat level. Undetermined. Recommendation. Caution. Contact with House Ashford. This is new. House Ashford deals in weapons, the 4th of the 5 great houses. What do Montero and the crystals have to do with this? Cale doesn't know yet, but he makes a note of it. The first week is coming to an end. 3 dinners, 3 houses, 3 sets of data. Valentine is drowning in debt. Caldera is losing its mines. Montero is conducting secret negotiations with Ashford. 3 ships are sinking. Cale is the rope that binds them. If the ships sink, the rope will sink with them. The system updates his rank. Progress. 12% to merchant level. Cale closes the interface and stares at the ceiling. In his past life, he traded copper and oil futures. Now he trades silk and information. The tools are different. The principle is the same. Buy low, sell high, and never show your hand. In 3 weeks, the price of silk begins to rise. Slowly at first. By 2%. By 5%. Rumors of a drought reach the small traders. Then faster. By 10% a week. Cale waits. Patience. That is the trader's most important quality. Not intelligence, not luck. Patience. A month later, grade A silk is worth 4 times as much. 8 rolls. Purchased for 86 silver. Current value, 360 gold. Cale sells. Not at the small market. At the middle exchange. Small-scale wholesale. Anonymously. Through a middleman. An old acquaintance from his days as a porter. For a percentage of the deal. 360 gold pieces minus commission. Net profit. 342 gold pieces. From 90 silver pieces. In a month. Cale sits in his small room in the guest wing and counts the gold coins. 342 gold pieces. His wives give him 90 silver coins a month. That's 9 gold coins. He earned 38 times more than he received. The system flashes. Rank updated. Lottery agent. Merchant. New features unlocked. Deal portrait. Improved. Now shows the deal range. The minimum and maximum the counterparty agrees to. Network of connections. Expanded. View radius increased. Cale looks at the gold, then at the system interface, then back at the gold. 342 gold pieces is nothing to the great house, but it's a start. Capital. A seed from which a tree can grow, if you know where to plant it. 342 gold. Kyle counts out coins on table and thinks. In past life, he would have a position and waited. But here is stock exchange. Here is where you can be in and for 10 gold coins. The money needs turnover. Quickly. While no one has noticed that my husband had capital, the system issues morning market. Or. Trend for month. Arrow down. Reason. Detected new deposit in northern foothills. Information is classified. It will reach to the market in 3 weeks. When the price to ore sinks to 20%. Kyle thinks. The ore falls. Silk has grown. What grows when ore falls? The logic is simple. Cheap ore means cheap iron. Cheap hardware means more construction. More construction means demand for finishing materials. Crystals, glass, paint. Kale switches forecast. Crystals, trend, stable, no changes. But that for now. When the ore falls and construction begins up, crystals will regrow. The system does show this secondary effect. It shows direct trends, chains. Kyle builds them. This, his skill, not systems. He decides. 1 gold into crystals. Buy now at a stable price. Sell through 2 months when the boom will demand. The remaining 242 gold in circulation. We need infrastructure. We can't keep rolls silk and hide them in a warehouse. Kyle is to shopping district, but not to market. To tavern. Copper Goose. A place. Cheap beer. Here is where those who have a place in the market. Former managers. Retired foremen. People who know how the trading, but in various reasons were eliminated from the system. Kyle is looking at one specific person. Marcus Gray. 40 years old. Former sales of a chain in the segment. It was good. It even great. Then I started drinking. I lost my place. I lost my wife. Lost home. Now lives above the tavern and drinks from last pennies. Kyle found his name through the own of connections. The system showed a map of routes and highlighted key hubs. Marcus Gray controlled 3 of them, at the same time. 5 years, without a single glitch. That's genius of logistics. A drunk, broken genius of logistics. Kyle finds him in corner. Marcus is sitting over a mug. His are red. His hands are shaking. But when Kyle sits across from and starts speak about routes and warehouses, something in the eyes Marcus is changing. Kyle says that he needs a manager. For a chain which he is building. Small for now, but with ambition. Marcus asks what he has capital. Kyle says that 242 gold pieces. Marcus laughs. He says that 242 gold you can open a shop for sell dried fruit. Not retail chain. Kyle says that in a month there will be more. In 3 months, much more. He says that he needs someone who sees the routes as lines on the map, which knows which warehouse in which city is idle, which can arrange delivery from A to point B faster than the competition. Marcus stops laughing. He looks at Kayla for a long time, then asks who. That's the kind of guy he is. Kyle says he's a nobody, a commoner married to 3 aristocrats. But that's only temporary. Marcus shakes his head. He says he used to work for wealthy people. In the end, they all either betrayed him or went bankrupt. Why should he trust a commoner with a handful of gold? Kyle activates the deal portrait. Marcus Gray. Hidden motive. A desire to prove his own worth. Deal zone. Will agree to a share of the profits. Will not accept a fixed fee. Red line. Will not work for those who do not respect him. Kyle says he isn't offering a salary. He's offering a share. 10% of net profits. And a say in operational decisions. Marcus is silent. 10 seconds. 20. Then he picks up his mug, finishes it, sets it on the table. Says he wants to see a plan. Kyle lays out the plan. Not on paper. Verbally. Buying up scarce goods before the market learns of the shortage. Reselling at the peak. Simultaneously, creating a network of warehouses along key routes. Not large warehouses. small transshipment points, where goods can be intercepted halfway to major exchanges and redirected to where demand is higher. Marcus listens. His eyes change. Sober. Sharp. He starts asking questions. The right questions. Where exactly the transshipment points are. Which product categories. How to get around the Merchant Guild's license. Cale answers every one. 2 hours. They sit in the corner of a dingy tavern and sketch out the framework of a trading network that, in a year, will control 8% of the Empire's market. Marcus stands up. He shakes Cale's hand, says he'll start tomorrow, and that he needs a room better than this dump. Cale rents him a place near the warehouse district. 15 gold pieces for 3 months in advance. An investment. Marcus doesn't drink the next day, or the day after that either. Work heals him faster than any medicine. A week later, Kyle has 3 staging points, small rented corners in warehouses along the southern route. The rent is a joke. No one wants these corners. They're too small for serious trade. But Kyle doesn't need much space. He needs points on the map, hubs in the network. Marcus finds 2 more people, former clerks. They too have been kicked out of the system. One drinks, the other gambles. Both know their stuff. Marcus puts them in the warehouses, pays them a cut, not much, but steady. For people who used to sleep under a bridge, it's a fortune. Meanwhile, Cale solves the problem that's keeping him awake. Victoria Valentine. Her house is sinking. The system has flagged critical financial pressure. The southern caravan is stuck, 4,000 gold in losses. But Cale can't help directly. He's a husband in name only. No say. No access to documents. If he approaches Victoria and tells her he knows about her problems, she'll take it as a threat. Or as spying. He needs another way. Cale activates the network of connections. He searches for information on the caravan. The system shows an alternative route. Not through the swamps, through Kerr Valley. A week longer but dry. The silk will arrive intact. Problem. Kerr Valley is controlled by a petty baron who charges a toll. 300 gold pieces for the caravan's passage. That's expensive. But cheaper than losing half the cargo. Cale can't send this information to Victoria in his own name. She won't listen. But he can send it through an intermediary. Kyle writes a note. Unsigned. Facts. Route. Estimated losses. The alternative through Kerr Valley. The cost of the toll. Total savings. 3,700 gold pieces. He leaves the note on the desk of the manager of the Valentine house. At night. Quietly. As a porter, he knows the layout of every room. 2 days later, Cale notices that Victoria looks different. Not relaxed, but slightly less tense. Like a spring that's been released halfway. At dinner on Tuesday, she looks at him for more than 3 seconds for the first time. Then she looks away. The Valentine caravan changes its route. It's passing through the Kerr Valley. The silk arrives intact. The manager is pleased but puzzled. An unsigned note. Someone knows about the house's problems and decided to help. Or someone wants to show they know. Cale leaves no traces. It's too early. The month is drawing to a close. The crystals are stable for now. The silk has been sold. The transshipment points are operational. Marcus has found his first order. A small merchant from the upper quarter is looking for a shipment of spices from the southern port. The usual route takes 3 weeks. Marcus has found a way to cut it down to 12 days via the transshipment points. The merchant pays 20 gold for the speed. Net profit is 11. Small change. But it's the first legal deal, the first client, the first stone in the foundation. Cale decides to give his network a name. Nolan Trade. Simple and impersonal. Marcus says the name is too bland for a trading company. Cale says it's fine for now. Let no one remember this name. Soon they won't be able to forget it. The system is updating. Progress toward the negotiator. 8%. A long way to go, but heading in the right direction. At the end of the month, Cale receives his new pay. 90 silver coins, 3 envelopes, 3 wives. He puts the coins into the Nolan Trade's general fund. Every penny works, not a single one lies idle. Just like on the stock market. Money that doesn't work is money that dies. Second month. Cale no longer considers silver. He counts gold coins. Capital Nolan Trade at the beginning of 496 gold coins. Small change for the great house, a fortune for a laborer. Marcus is working, truly working. He doesn't drink for 3 weeks. His eyes are clear, his don't shaking. He turned 3 transshipment in 7. Hired 4 people, all former ones, all written off, all hungry for works. Nolan Trade for does commodities. It sells speed. Marcus built a system. Any trader can hire Nolan Trade for express delivery. Transshipment allow swap horses and reload goods without delay onto city customs. Average acceleration 30%. Price per service 15% of the cost of the cargo. Customers are leaving. Not in a crowd, in a trickle. Small merchants who need deliver faster than the competition. Kyle every morning checks market. Crystals. So far stable, but his calculation has changed. The ore has begun fall. News about the northern field reached the exchanges. The price of iron ore fell to 14% and continues creep down. The construction sector has reacted, but it will react. Kyle is waiting. At the same time, he studies Calder. Every Thursday dinner at Isabel's. A noisy table, rude jokes, meat and wine. Kyle is silent about his place and gathers information. Isabel runs the house as a captain of a storm in a storm. Loudly, decisively, without hesitation. But the ship is leaking. Mine number 3 is closed for renovation. Officially. Unofficially was empty. Mine number 7 works at 60% capacity. The staff are leaving. Miners are switching to the competition. Isabel raises salaries. This is margin. Profit homes. Caldera per quarter fell on 23%. The system shows. 2 years. Maybe a year and a half. Then Caldera be able service its debts. And then the mass of the lords will lower their rank. From house to ordinary. This death for the dynasty. Kyle every Thursday sees how Isabel drinks and laughs. And every Thursday he sees how her fingers turn white on stem of the glass. She is afraid. And compensates her fear with loudness. One day after dinner, she stays behind. Not on purpose. He is toward the exit and walks past the library of Minner. The door is ajar. The light inside. Isabel is sitting at the table. In front of her the maps miners, financial reports. She doesn't drink. She works. Glasses on her nose, pen in hand. She is something. Quickly. Exactly. She notices him. She freezes. Her face changes in half a second. From a focused analyst back to a loud hostess. She asks what he's doing here. Cale says he got lost. Isabel looks at him, then at the reports, then back at him. She tells him not to bother pretending to be a fool. She's seen how he looks at the numbers during dinners. Ordinary husbands look at the food. He looks at the papers. Cale is silent. Isabel covers the reports with a folder, tells him to leave. He leaves. But at the door, she adds something. She says he's the first man who looks at her mines and sees numbers instead of dirt. Cale stops, turns around. Isabel is already bent over the maps again. The conversation is over. Cale returns home. He thinks. Isabel has noticed. It's dangerous, but it might be useful. 2 days later, Cale receives an unexpected visitor. Selena Montero, in person, at the Valentine estate. She has come to visit her husband. That is what she tells the servants. The servants are surprised. In a month and a half, none of the wives has visited Cale of her own accord. Selena brings a basket of fruit. She sits down in an armchair in his small room. She looks around. She smiles. She says the room is too modest for the husband of the 3 houses. Cale says it's enough for him. Selena asks what he's been doing these days. Cale says he walks around the city, reads. Selena smiles. The same smile. Perfect. Kyle activates the deal portrait. Selena Montero, current visit, purpose, information gathering. The subject assesses the threat level, outwardly neutral, internal calculation active. She's not here out of courtesy. She's here to understand who he is, why, what has changed. Selena asks a few more questions, gentle ones, unobtrusive. How he feels about trade, whether he's interested in the house's affairs. Does he have any plans? Cale answers carefully. No, not really. No. Selena finishes her tea. She stands up, says goodbye. At the door, she says that if he needs anything, he can contact her. No formalities. Cale thanks her. The door closes. He stands alone. He thinks. Selena is negotiating with the Ashford house. He knows that. Now she's come to check on him. A coincidence. Or not. Cale needs more information about the connection between Montero and Ashford, but it's too early to get involved right now. He shifts his focus to what he can control. Business. Nolan trade. Second month revenue. 140 gold from logistics services, plus 100 gold invested in crystals, not yet sold. Total capital around 640 gold. Growth is steady but slow. Kalu needs a breakthrough. And the breakthrough comes. The system issues an emergency forecast update. Salt. 2-week trend. 3 arrows pointing up. A sharp rise. The reason? Flooding of the salt mines in the eastern province. The main supplier is out of the picture. The shortage will hit the market in 5 days. Salt. A staple commodity. Everyone needs it, rich and poor alike. When salt gets more expensive, everyone feels it. Cale does the math. For 600 gold, you can buy 20 barrels of salt at the current price. In 2 weeks, each barrel will cost 3 times as much. But, there's a but. 600 gold is all the capital, investing everything in a single position. In a past life, this was called going all in, the riskiest strategy, the most profitable if you're right. The system says the forecast is accurate, but the system warns information, not protection. If anyone finds out that a man with no ties is buying up salt before a shortage, there will be questions. Dangerous questions. Cale thinks it over for a day. Then he makes a decision. Not all in. 400 gold pieces on salt, 200 in reserve. Always keep a reserve. That's a lesson he learned when he lost $70,000 on oil in his past life. Marcus organizes the purchase, quietly, through 3 different middlemen. Not a single name surfaces. 13 barrels of salt, distributed across 4 transshipment points. 5 days later, news of the flooding reaches the exchanges. Salt jumps 40% in a single day. Panic. Traders rush to buy. The price rises. 10 days later, salt is 2.5 times more expensive. Cale waits. 2 weeks later, the peak. Salt is 3 times more expensive. Cale sells. 13 barrels. Purchased for 400 gold. Sold for 1,200. Net profit of 800. Nolan Trade's total capital exceeds 1,500 gold. Marcus looks at the numbers and is silent. Then he says that in 20 years in the trade, he has never seen such a knack for the market. Kyle says it's not intuition, it's discipline. Marcus doesn't believe him but doesn't argue. The results speak for themselves. End of the 2nd month. The crystals are starting to grow, just as Kyle predicted. The construction sector has come alive on cheap iron. Demand for decorative crystals is rising. The 100 gold pieces Cale invested in crystals a month ago are now worth 180. He isn't selling yet. The growth will continue for at least another month. Patience. Nolan Trade. 1,500 gold pieces, 7 transshipment points, 6 employees, 1 shadow director, 1 founder whose 3 wives consider him a useless husband. Cale goes to bed and the system shows him an updated market map. Somewhere on it is a tiny dot. Nolan Trade. It isn't visible yet. It doesn't mean anything yet. But the dot is growing, and soon it will be noticed by those who shouldn't be noticing it. Third month. Nolan Trade ceases to be invisible. Not for the great houses. For them, it is still dust. But the small merchants of the quarter already know this name. The company that delivers faster of all. The company with which always has the item in right time. Marcus has built a reputation on two things: speed and reliability. For 2 months, not a canceled order, not a single delays. Customer base has to 30 regular merchants. Revenue for third month, 1,800 gold. Net profit after all expenses, 900. The crystals sold. Those very 100 gold turned into 260. Growth in construction boom turned out even higher than Kale had expected. Total capital Nolan Trade at the beginning of month, 3,001 gold pieces. Kale sits in his room and watching at numbers. 3,000. Sounds serious. For a loader. For the great house, this monthly salary of senior manager. We need to faster. We need to scale up. Marcus introduces a new person. Lillian Weiss, 29 years old, lawyer, former lawyer at Ashford, fired. Reason for dismissal is telling. She found a violation in the contract Ashford with the department, underreporting quality of while the price. Reported to management. Management reported to Ashford. Lorenz fired her in that same day, without recommendations, from black mark across the industry. Not single great house will lawyer whom expelled Ashford this verdict. Lillian is sitting in front of Kale and speaks directly. She says that knows who he is. A husband of houses. The rootless one. She says that Nolan Trade formally is not affiliated with him. Marcus is registered as owner. But she a lawyer, and she knows count. The husband is building his fourth house. Right of 3 wives. She says that it either genius or suicidal. Kyle asks, and what if? And then? And the other? Lillian smiles. Kyle activates deals. Lillian Weiss, dominant motif, justice. Secondary motive, revenge to Ashford, red line. It will violate the law. It will participate in fraud. Transaction of the transaction. Will a share and influence. Refuse from subordinate role. Kyle offers 5% of net profit Nolan Trade. Position, chief legal counsel. Full autonomy in legal matters. Lillian thinks 10 seconds. She agrees. Her first advice, Nolan Trade should legalized. Right now it gray structure without a license. Marcus works through frontmen. This acceptable on a minor level. On a mile, this a death sentence. You need a mile from guild. Cost, 500 gold, plus an annual fee 200, plus an audit which will reveal sources of capital. Kyle thinks. An audit is a problem. Source of capital. 90 silver pocket from 3 wives. The auditor will ask questions. There are questions. Lillian suggests a solution. Apply for a license for Marcus Gray. He is manager. He has a track record. His past capital can be explained by savings. 500 gold coins. A one-time payment. The mile is but necessary. Kyle asserts. Nolan Trade receives a license in a week. Now at a legal trading company. A small one, but legal. At the same time, Kale continues work with market forecast. Every morning he scans the trends. The system shows dozens of product categories. Most are stable. But 3 times a month, she emits signals. Flaxseed oil. Growth to 20%. Reason. Fire at the oil mill in the southern port. Copper wire. The fall to 15%. Reason. New supplier from across the sea. Faux leather. A 30% increase. Seasonal demand. Kale acts on every signal. Buys oil. Sells copper wire short through a middleman. Buys leather. Each trade brings in between 50 and 200 gold pieces. Small, but steady. And most importantly, without attracting the attention of the big players. Marcus calls this strategy hunting for crumbs. Cale says that crumbs add up to a loaf. By the end of the third month, Nolan Trade's capital reaches 5,000 gold, then 7, then 9, then 12,000. The big jump comes from a single deal. Cale learns through the network of connections that a spice caravan from the eastern province is delayed by 3 weeks. The only competing caravan with the same goods will pass through the city in 4 days. Cale buys up the entire caravan, all the spices, for 8,000 gold. Marcus says he's crazy. 8,000 is their entire working capital. Cale says that in 3 weeks, when the spice shortage becomes obvious, the price will double. Marcus says that if the caravan isn't delayed and the spices arrive on time, they'll lose everything. Cale says the caravan will be delayed. Marcus asks how he knows. Cale is silent. Marcus stares at him for a long time. Then he nods. The caravan is delayed. Exactly 3 weeks. The price of spices skyrockets. Cale sells 16,000, minus the purchase price, minus expenses. Net profit, 4,000. Total capital of Nolan Trade, 12,000 gold. The system updates his progress. Rank, merchant. Progress toward negotiator, 41%. New feature unlocked. Market forecast, upgraded. Now 2 forecasts a day instead of 1. Cale feels the system expanding, like a terminal to which new monitors are being connected. More data, more possibilities, more risk. Because 12,000 gold pieces isn't pocket change anymore. It's a sum that will get noticed. The first call comes from a source Cale didn't expect. Not from his wives, not from the council, from Isabel Caldera. On Thursday at dinner, she beckons Cale over, not to the main table, to the side, quietly. She says her people have checked out Nolan Trade. The company is registered to Marcus Gray, a former alcoholic. 3 months ago, he was living above a tavern. Now he runs a growing retail chain. Suddenly, suspiciously. She asks Cale if he knows anything about it. Cale says he doesn't know. It's the first time he's heard that name. Isabel looks at him. Her eyes are sharp. She doesn't believe him, but she can't prove it. She says Marcus Gray worked in the same neighborhood where Cale used to haul bales. A coincidence. Cale shrugs. Isabel lets him go. But Cale sees it. She's remembered. She'll dig. It's the first crack in the disguise. The first sign that the shadow is becoming too visible. Cale returns home and calls Marcus. He says that Isabel Caldera knows about Nolan Trade. Marcus turns pale. The Calder household is all about mines and steel, brute force. If Isabel decides that Nolan Trade is a threat, she won't send lawyers. She'll send people with fists. Cale says it's too early to panic. Isabel only knows the name. She doesn't know the scale. She doesn't know the connection to him. Not yet, anyway. We need to speed things up. Become big enough that we can't just be crushed. Or become useful enough that they won't want to crush us. Lillian suggests a third option. Become indispensable. Find what the Calder house needs and offer it through Nolan Trade, so that destroying Nolan Trade would mean destroying their own salvation. Kyle thinks. Calder needs mines, new deposits. The system has already shown that the old veins are running dry. He activates the network of connections, searches for data on ore deposits. The system is working. A map of the region unfolds. Known deposits. Explored. Unexplored. Presumed. One point on the map flashes. The northeastern ridge, Mount Talver. An unexplored deposit. The system estimates the probability of iron ore presence at 73%. Based on geological data and trade records from 300 years ago, mining used to take place there. Then it was abandoned. The reason? War, not depletion. Cale saves the coordinates. It's a map. A trump card. Not now, later, when Isabel is ready to listen. The end of the 3rd month. 3 wives, 3 houses, 3 sinking ships. Cale is the rope between them, until they realize the rope has become a steel cable. 12,000 gold. Nolan trade. A growing network. 3 allies. Marcus, Lillian, and the system that sees everything. Almost everything, because there is one thing the system does not see. Lorenz Ashford, head of House Ashford, 55 years old, a man who has waited 20 years for the moment to destroy the Triune Union, a man who helped the 3 houses find Kayla, the perfect puppet, or so he thought. Lorenz sits in his office playing chess against himself. Before him lies a report, Nolan Trade, a new trading company, small, but growing. Owner, Marcus Gray, a former alcoholic. Lorenz moves a rook. It doesn't matter for now. Small companies appear and disappear every day. He puts the report in a pile, with the unimportant ones. In 6 months he'll regret it, but he doesn't know that yet. 4th month. Kyle wakes up and first thing activates market. 2 signals. First, silk. Trend is stable. Second, weapons steel. Trend upward. 2 arrows. Reason. Borderline border in western borders of the empire. The department is increasing procurement. Term. The increase will begin in 10 days. It will last 2 months. Weapons steel. This is the territory Ashford. Ashford. Lorenz Ashford controls 60% of weapons steel in the empire. When steel grows, Ashford grows richer. Cale records. Not for the deal, for understanding. Ashford will become stronger in coming months. This means that his plan to destroy the Union will be more resources. It is necessary to be ready. But first, take care tasks. Nolan trade is growing, and growth creates problems. Marcus arrives in the morning with bad news. The guild sent an inspector. Routine inspection. New companies are during first year 3 times. The inspector looked the warehouses. He looked the books. He asked questions. Marcus answered to all of them, but the inspector marked one thing. The Nolan trade for 3 months not meets the initial capital. Too rapid growth. Suspiciously fast. This is accusation. For now. This note in the registry. If someone wants dig in him, there a reason. Lillian says that we need to slow down. Slow the pace for a month. Give the guild a reason to forget. Kyle thinks. To slow down means to lose time, and time is the only thing he can buy. He makes a decision. He slow down, but diversify. Instead, large transactions in commodities switch to services, logistics, consulting, brokerage. These revenues are harder to track, and they look more natural for a young company. Marcus is restructuring operations in a week. Nolan Trade is becoming a logistics operator with a division, not the other way around. On paper. In reality, Cale continues trading, but after long chains intermediaries. Every transaction goes through 2 or 3 hands before the profit settles in the cash register. Nolan Trade. Slower, more expensive, but safer. In parallel is on another problem. Victoria Valentine. Caravan with silk arrived through the Valley Cur, the intact. But this one-time solution. The problem Valentine's Valentine runs than a caravan. Kyle activates true price and network of connections at the same time. Scans everything that related with Valentine's Valentine. The data come in a stream. House Valentine monitors 40% of the market of the empire, or controlled. For the past 3 years, the share has gone to 28%. Reason: competition with Eastern suppliers. Cheap silk from the sea is on prices. Valentine can lower them without compromising quality. And quality is the thing distinguishes them product. It is a Valentine, 62,000 gold. Interest on loans, 8% per year. Lender: Raymond, 5th Great House. Bankers: monthly payment on debt, 413 gold coins. In an income this anus, slow but sure. Kyle sees the whole in its entirety. Valentine is drowning not because that is badly. Victoria, on fact, is a manager. But she plays in defense, reduces costs, cuts staff, seeking ways to save, this the strategy of a loser. You need not cut back, you need expand. But expand not in gold. The debt hangs like a millstone, a closed circle. Kyle begins count. If there someone had Valentine's Valentine, 62,000 gold pieces. At Nolan Trade doesn't such money. For now. But if the rate continues remains over 6 months will be... Question. Why he pay off someone else's debt? The answer is simple. Victoria, wife. House Valentine part of the union. If Valentine falls, the union will weaken. If the union weakens, Ashford will strike. If Ashford strikes, Kyle loses everything. He doesn't save Victoria from out of, he defends his position. So he too says, Tuesday, dinner at Valentine's. Kyle sits at his usual spot at end the table. Cousins no longer no giggle. They got used to it. He part of the furniture. Victoria discusses the quarterly report with the manager. Voice is steady, but Kyle sees. The numbers are bad. Revenues have even by 4%. The manager proposes to cut purchases of raw materials. Victoria says no. Cutting purchases means a reduction in production. A reduction in production means a loss of customers. Lost customers means even less revenue. A vicious cycle. She sees a spiral and doesn't know how to get out. After dinner, stays behind. For the first time, he approaches to Victoria herself. She is gathering paper from the desk. She sees him. She raises an eyebrow. Kyle says that once Aska about silk. Victoria remains silent for seconds. Then she says that he's listening. Kyle asks why Valentine doesn't come out enter the dye silk. Now the house sells white silk, raw material. Dyeing workshops buy it and add a markup of 300%. Valentine sells cheaply. Dyers sell at high prices. Why not cut out the middleman? Victoria looks at him. For a long time, her eyes change, from indifferent to wary. She asks where the loader knows about the dye of market. Kyle says that many listens at dinners. Victoria remains silent still 5 seconds. Then he says that the dye market requires craftsmen and equipment. This investment, which Valentine doesn't have. Kyle says that can't not build a dyeing plant. You can buy an existing one. There is workshop Olmero in Nizhny Quarter, old master, the best dyeing specialist in town. His sons don't want to continue the business. Workshop for sale for 800 gold. That's pennies for the operation that will increase the margin to 60%. Victoria places bets on the table. She sits down. He looks at Kyla up. For the first time in 4 months, she looks at him doesn't as a furniture, like for a person. She asks why is get in business? At home. Kyle says that he is a husband, formally, and that if House Valentine goes bankrupt, formal husband will suffer. That's selfishness, not help. Victoria smiles. First time he sees anything other ice on her face. She says that she'll think about it. Kyle leaves. After 3 days, the workshop Olmero was bought by Valentine for 750 gold pieces. Victoria bargained. Kyle finds out about this from the servants. Victoria doesn't tell him. But at the next dinner, she nods at him. Briefly, almost imperceptibly. The system updates the data. Victoria Valentine. Loyalty to the subject. Low. Change. Positive trend. Hidden comment. The subject begins to perceive the object as a potential asset. A potential asset. Not a husband, not a partner, an asset. But this is already more than just a piece of furniture. Progress. 5th month. Kyle needs transportation. Nolan Trade uses hired carters. It's expensive and unreliable. She needs her own caravan, or at least one ship. Marcus suggests a candidate. Thor Vincent, nicknamed Cargo. 35 years old, captain of a riverboat. Officially transports cargo along the Grand Canal. Unofficially takes on contraband. Not drugs or weapons. Goods bypassing customs. Duty evasion. A minor offense. A major savings. Marcus says Cargo is loyal to whoever pays the most. He has no principles. He has a price. That's convenient. Principled people are hard to control. Corrupt ones are easy. You just have to pay more than the rest. Cale meets Thor at the pier. Broad-shouldered, tanned, a scar on his chin, cunning eyes. He looks at Cale and sees a boy in modest clothes. Thor asks who he is and why he's wasting his time. Cale activates the deal portrait. Thor Vincent. Dominant motive, money. Secondary motives, independence, fear, loss of his ship, debt to the Port Guild, 3,000 gold. Red line, will not work for those who restrict his freedom. 3,000 gold in debt. Interesting. Kyle offers a deal. Nolan Trade pays off Thor's debt, 3,000 gold. In exchange, Thor works for Nolan Trade, exclusively. 2 years. Free after 2 years. He keeps the ship. Thor is silent. 3,000 gold is more than he could earn in 5 years of smuggling, Kyle adds, plus 10% of the profit from every voyage, plus complete freedom to choose the route. No smuggling. Legal cargo. A good captain shouldn't risk his neck over duties when he can earn more on legitimate shipments. Thor looks at him with new eyes. He asks where the money comes from. Cale says from trade. Thor asks what kind of trade. Cale says smart trade. Thor thinks it over for a day. The next day, he shakes his hand. Nolan Trade now has a ship. Nolan Trade's capital after paying off Thor's debt, 14,000 gold, minus 3,000, 11,000. Painful, but strategically sound. River transport along the Great Canal speeds up delivery by 40% compared to overland caravans, and it's 3 times cheaper. Thor makes his first voyage. Spices from the southern port to the capital. 3 days instead of 10. The client pays a premium for speed. Net profit, 400 gold, for a single voyage. Marcus does the math. If Thor makes 3 trips a month, that's 1,200 gold in additional income. The 3,000 gold debt will be paid off in 3 months. Cale nods. He knew this when he proposed the deal. The 5th month is ending. Nolan Trade's capital is restored to 15,000 gold. Growth is accelerating again. Cale sits in his room that evening, studying the system's data. He has unlocked the expanded network of connections. Now it shows not only routes and shortages, it shows the financial ties between the houses. And one connection is lit up in red. House Montero. A contract with House Ashford, signed 4 months ago, a month before Cale's wedding. The gist of the contract. The House of Montero supplies crystals for weapon sight lenses, exclusively, for a term of 5 years. The price is 30% below market value. 30% below market value. This isn't a contract. It's a bondage agreement. The Monteros are giving their main commodity to Ashford at a reduced price. Why? The system shows additional data. A hidden addendum to the contract. The House of Ashford agrees not to support the Trade Lords' Council's claims to dissolve the Triune Union. Simply put, Selena bought Ashford's protection, at the cost of her business. She's giving away crystals for a song so Ashford won't vote against the Union in the Council. But why does she need the Union? What does she lose if the Union is destroyed? The system doesn't know. Selena's motive remains undefined. The subject is unpredictable. Cale closes the interface. 3 wives, 3 secrets. Victoria is drowning in debt. Isabel is losing her minds. Selena is selling herself to Ashford. And Lorenz Ashford is behind the scenes of each of these stories. The banker Valentine is Raymond House. But who advised Raymond to issue a loan at a predatory interest rate? Caldera's mines are being depleted. But who is buying up the miners, luring them with higher wages? Selina signed a binding contract. With whom? One name. Lorenz Ashford. He isn't destroying the three houses openly. He is destroying them from within, slowly, methodically, like a chess player who sacrifices pawns to open a line for a rook. And Cale is the pawn he placed on the board, a rootless puppet who must tear the union apart by his very existence. A rootless husband whom his three wives will hate, who will provoke a scandal, who will give the council a reason to repeal the law. Lorenz doesn't know that the pawn can read the board. 6th month. 6 months from the wedding. Kyle is on deck of Thor and looks at Great Canal. The water glistens in the morning light. Barges creep along the shores. Loaders shout at the docks. 6 months ago he carried bales. Now he has trading with capital of 20,000 gold. 10 transshipment transit, 1 ship, 14 employees. And not a lot of three wives does know that a useless husband is richer than some average homes. The system generates morning forecast. The first signal, crystals, stable. Second signal, grain, trend down. 1 arrow, good harvest. Prices will fall, not critical. Cale records and gets distracted. Today is day. Don't because of the market, because of Selina Montero. Yesterday she sent an invitation. No for dinner. To private date. In garden of the Montero. Just the two of us. Kyle knows that it's a trap, not physical. An information trap. Selina wants find to find out. Or to say. In any case he is going. That's that he needs information. A contract with Ashford. 30% below the market than 5 years. This suicide for Doma Montero. Why Selina undo? Garden estates Montero, crystal fountains, neat paths, roses, everything is perfect. Just Selina. She is waiting him on bench by the pond. White dress, a smile, that same smile. Kyle sits next to her. Selina is silent for a minute. She looks at water. Then he says that he wants to honest. Kyle is waiting. Selina says that knows about Nolan trade. Kyle doesn't change in face. Inside, shrinks. She says that she track for a month. Her people tracked the chain from Marcus Gray to the old warehouse where Cale first menched the first rolls of silk. The owner of the warehouse remembers a young man in modest clothing. The description matches. Kyle remains silent. He weighs his options. Is useless. Selina isn't bluffing. She came with evidence. The question is, she wants. Kyle activates portrait deals. Selina Montero, current meeting. Goal. Proposal of the union. Hidden motive. As before, not determined. Level. Threat level. Low. Subject does not plan to use the information destructively. The proposal, the union. Don't blackmail. Kyle relaxes his shoulders, by a millimeter. Selina continues. She says that doesn't is going tell Victoria or Isabel, and it worked to counsel. She is. If the union falls apart, it will lose more of all. Kyle asks why. Selina is silent. For a long time. Then she speaks. Home. Montero is the weakest of 3. Without the union, he will be crushed in year. Valentine will survive on silk, Caldera on steel, Montero on crystals. The market is narrow. Competitors are strong. The only one that gives Montero weight. 3 houses together is strength. 1. Montero is target. Kyle understands. Selina signed a contract with Ashford not because that is stupid, but because desperate. She bought protection. The only way that from it had. Kyle, he says he knows about the contract. Selina freezes. For the first time her composure slips. Fear. Real fear. She asks where he heard it. Cale says he has his sources. He doesn't elaborate. Selina is silent for 30 seconds. Then she exhales. She says that if this information reaches the council, the House of Montero will be destroyed. The contract violates the rules of competition between the great houses. It's grounds for revocation of status. Cale says he doesn't intend to use this against her. Selina looks at him. Her eyes are different. Not that perfect smile. A genuine look. For the first time. She asks what he wants. Kyle speaks. He wants to terminate the contract with Ashford. Safely. Without consequences for Montero. He says he has a plan. But it will take time. 6 months. In those 6 months, Nolan trade will grow enough to offset the losses from the termination. He'll find new buyers for the crystals, at market price, or higher. Selina listens. Her hands grip the edge of the bench, white knuckles. She asks why he's doing this. Cale says the same thing he told Victoria. Self-interest. If Montero falls, the union will weaken. If the union weakens, Cale will lose his position. Selina shakes her head. She says she doesn't believe him. A selfish person doesn't build a company that saves other people's caravans with anonymous notes. Yes, she knows that too. For the first time, Cale feels like he's been outmaneuvered. Not by the system, not by the market, by a 23-year-old woman who sees more than she lets on. The system was right. The subject is unpredictable. They part ways without a formal agreement, but both know something has changed. Selina is not the enemy, for now. Cale returns and finds Marcus in a state of controlled panic. A problem, a serious one. One of the transshipment warehouses has been robbed, the southern outpost. 300 gold worth of goods, 3 bales of spices, 2 crates of linseed oil. Security failed. 1 guard with a stick against 5 armed men. The outcome was predictable. Marcus says this wasn't a random robbery. The thieves knew what was in the warehouse and when security would be at a minimum. Inside information. Lillian conducts an internal investigation. 2 days later, she finds the leak. A clerk at the South Warehouse. He sold the information for 50 gold pieces. To whom? Not yet determined. Lillian fires the clerk. Cale approves. But he thinks further. The robbery is a symptom. Nolan trade has become prominent enough to attract attention, and weak enough to be struck. Protection is needed. Not guards with sticks, real protection. Cale thinks for 2 days. Then he finds a solution. Don't hire guards. Become indispensable to those who already have guards. He returns to the plan with Isabel Caldera. Mount Talver. An unexplored deposit. 73% probability of ore. Isabel needs new mines. Cale has a map. Time to play his trump card. Thursday. Dinner at Caldera's. Cale arrives as usual. Takes his seat. Eats. Remains silent. But after dinner he doesn't leave. He approaches Isabel. She's surprised. Usually he's the first to disappear. Cale says he wants to discuss something. In private. Isabel raises an eyebrow. Smirks. Says loudly so everyone can hear that her husband wants a private conversation. Laughter. Cale doesn't react. He waits. Isabel sees his face. Stops laughing. Leads him into the study. She closes the door. She asks what he wants. Cale speaks bluntly. He knows that Caldera's mines are running dry. He knows that in a year and a half, the house won't be able to service its debts. And he knows where there's a new deposit. Isabel is silent. Her face hardens. She asks how he knows about the mines. Cale says he overhears things at dinner parties. A 7% drop in output for the quarter. The closure of mine number 3. Miners switching to competitors. Wage increases. It's no secret, it's simple math. Isabel stands motionless. Then she sits down, heavily, as if something inside her is broken. Not armor, a facade. She asks quietly, without her usual volume, what kind of deposit it is. Cale explains. Mount Talver, the northeastern range. 300 years ago, ore was mined there, abandoned because of the war, not because of depletion. Geological data points to a high probability of unexplored deposits. An expedition is needed. The cost of exploration is about 2,000 gold pieces. Isabel asks where he got this information. Cale remains silent. Isabel looks at him for a long time. Then she says that if it's true, she won't forget him. If it's a lie, she won't forget him either, but in a different sense. Cale says he's not asking for anything in return. Bye. Isabel smirks. She says nothing is free in Velkrand. Cale says that's true, but sometimes the price is determined later. He leaves. Isabel sits alone in her office. She looks at the map he left behind. In a week, the expedition sets off for Mount Talver. Isabel sends her best scouts. The results will come in a month. The system updates the data. Isabel Caldera. Loyalty to the subject. Extremely low. Change. Waiting. The subject postpones the assessment until the reconnaissance results are in. Cale accepts. Waiting is no longer hostility. The 6th month is ending. Capital, Nolan Trade. 22,000 gold. The system updates the rank. Merchant. Progress toward negotiator. 76%. Soon. 7th month. Kyle wakes up to knocking on the door. It's early. It's dark. Victoria's. He says that Miss Valentine is calling him. Now. Immediately. Kyle gets dressed and leaves. Victoria's. Candles are burning. On the table. There, papers. Victoria is standing by the window, with her back to it. She doesn't stand without turning around. A beautiful workshop. Olmero is open. Behind, 2 months' revenue from dyed silk amounted to two gold pieces. The 33%, as Ian said. She turns around. She looks at him. She says that she wants to know who he, not name, not a biography. She wants to know where from the warehouse knows about profit of market. On the route through the town, about Olmero which is for sale. Kyle is silent. She thinks. Victoria takes a step toward him. She says that his background, an orphan, on the outskirts, no education, no connections. And even that, he understands in business than her manager with 30 years of experience. Kyle says that learns. Victoria shakes her head. She doesn't accept this answer. She says that there are 2 options. The first, someone is behind them. Someone is using it as a channel to influence undecisions of Valentine. Second, he himself, by why. And then she wants to know why. Kyle activates portrait deals. Victoria Valentine, current conversation, dominant emotion, anxiety. The subject is afraid losing control. Transaction of the transaction. Ready to accept help if it preserves full control. Red line hasn't. It will not allow interference in the management of the house. Kyle chooses words. He says that no one for him is behind him. He says that he wants for House Valentine go bankrupt. That he is tied to 3 houses by contract, and if one collapses, everyone, including him. Victoria listens. Her eyes search for lies. Kyle is lie. He just doesn't say the truth. Victoria is silent for a minute. Then she sits at the table. He opens the drawer. He takes out a folder, a thick one, puts in front of him. He says that it financial reports of Valentine for the year. If he is smart, let take a look. And what that she does not do, Kyle takes the folder. Hands don't shaking, but inside everything rings. She led him to the documents for the first time. He says that he'll look and will return in 2 days. Victoria nods. He leaves. 2 days. Kyle isn't sleep. He studies every line, every digit. The system helps. True price shows the actual value of each asset and each liability. A picture is debt, Valentine, Valentine, not 62,000 gold. That is the figure. The actual debt, taking accounting, hidden liabilities and penalty interest, 90,000. The manager hides part of inside contracts. Not theft, just shifting from one pocket to another to the report look better. Traditional accounting cosmetics. Victoria doesn't knows, or does but doesn't want to see. Kyle finds something. Percentage on the Raymond, 8% per year. Standard rate is 5, 3% on top. Why? The system shows. Hidden condition in loan agreement. Recommendation, Ashford. Lorenz Ashford personally persuaded the Raymond bankers to raise the interest rate for Valentine. The motive? To weaken the house. A slow strangulation by debt. Cale clenches his fists. Ashford is everywhere, like a spider at the center of its web. Every thread leads back to him. 2 days later, Cale returns Victoria's folder. He says he found 3 things. First, a hidden debt of 17,000 gold pieces disguised inside contracts. The manager isn't stealing, but he's hiding the problem. Second, the interest rate on the loan is 3 points too high. We can refinance through another lender, or negotiate a revision of the terms. Third, the cost structure is inefficient. There are too many middlemen in the supply chain. If we cut 3 out of 5 intermediaries and work directly with raw material producers, the savings will amount to 4,000 gold pieces a year. Victoria listens. Her face is impassive, but Cale sees her fingers turning white on the edge of the table. She didn't know about the hidden debt, or she knew but didn't know the scale of it. She asks about the manager. Cale says he shouldn't be fired. He's not the enemy. He just got scared and started hiding problems instead of solving them. We need to talk to him. Directly. Without threats. Show him that we're aware of the problem and that we need to solve it together. Victoria is silent for a long time. A very long time. Then she says 2 words. Thank you, husband. It's the first time she's called him husband. Not by name. Not the man with no family. Not the porter. Husband. Cale nods and leaves. He stops in the hallway. His heart is beating faster than usual. Not because of the numbers. Because of those 2 words. It's dangerous. Emotions in business are a weakness. He knows that. But still. A week goes by. Victoria talks to the manager. No drama. The hidden debt is brought to light. The refinancing process is set in motion. Lillian helps with the legal side. Not directly. Through a third party. No one must know that lawyer Nolan Trade works for the House of Valentine. At the same time, the results of the reconnaissance from Mount Talver arrive. Marcus brings the news. Isabel Caldera sent a messenger. The result. Ore has been found. It was a rich vein. Preliminary estimate of reserves. Enough for 20 years of mining. 20 years. For a house with only a year and a half left, this is salvation. Cale awaits Isabel's reaction. She arrives 3 days later. Not for dinner. In person. At the Valentine estate. The servants are surprised. 2 wives in one estate. This happens once a quarter at formal gatherings, not on their own initiative. Isabel finds Cale in his room. She enters without knocking. She looks at him. She is silent for 10 seconds. Then she says that Mount Talver is real. There is ore, a lot of it. She asks how he found out. Cale says he read old trade records, 300 years old. They mentioned mining in that area. The rest is logic and geology. Isabel steps closer. She speaks quietly, without her usual volume, without bravado. She says that now she owes him, and that Isabel Caldera pays her debts. Always. Cale says he doesn't need anything yet. Isabel smirks. She says that's the most dangerous kind of debt. Indefinite. She leaves. She turns around in the doorway. She says his room is shamefully small for a husband of the 3 houses. Cale shrugs. The door closes. The system updates the data. Isabel Caldera. Loyalty to the subject. Low. Change. Significant positive trend. Hidden marker. Respect. Respect. Not loyalty, not trust, but respect. For Isabel, who respects only power and results, this is a major shift. 8th month. Nolan trade. Capital. 31,000 gold. Marcus says it's time to expand. Open an office. Hire real staff, not ex-alcoholics and gamblers. Professionals. Cale thinks. An office means visibility. Visibility means attention. Attention means Ashford. But Marcus is right. You can't work out of basements and rented corners forever. A company with a turnover of 30,000 can't look like a junk dealer's stall. Cale agrees. The office opens in the middle trade district. Modest. 2 floors. The first is a warehouse. The second is offices. A sign. Nolan Trade. Gold letters on dark wood. Marcus is officially the head of the company. Cale doesn't appear anywhere. A shadow. The architect behind the scenes. Lillian handles the paperwork. The company is re-registered as a trading partnership. Marcus Gray is the managing partner. 2 junior partners. The errand boys who became managers. Everything is above board. Everything is legal. The first real client from the big exchange. A mid-tier trading house. An order to transport a shipment of spices from a southern port. The contract is worth 2,000 gold. Tor is in command of the ship. Marcus coordinates. Delivery 5 days ahead of schedule. The client is satisfied. Signs a 1-year contract. Ongoing service. Guaranteed income. This isn't just scraping by anymore. This is business. Cale sits in his small room in the guest wing and stares at the ceiling. 3 wives, 3 houses, 3 sinking ships. He's already helped each of them. Victoria got the dye house and the audit. Isabel got the mine. Selena got an ally who knows about the contract and isn't using it against her. They don't know yet that the help is coming from a single source. Not yet. But they'll find out soon. And then, the hardest part will begin. The 9th month. Kyle stands in front of the mirror and doesn't recognize himself. New suit, nice fabric. Not luxurious, but decent. Marcus insisted. Head of the company can enter in rags a porter, even if he shadow. Capital Nolan Trade. 70,000 gold. The growth is accelerating. The ship Tora makes 4 trips a month. Transshipment hubs have been expanded to 15. The base has over 60 regular merchants. Marcus hired 2 smart analysts from the guild. Former, of course. All people Kayla X's. Cast from the system, hungry for a second chance. The system serves morning forecast. Kyle reads and freezes. Armory steel. Trend toward 2 months. 3 arrows down. A sharp plunge. Reason. Borderline border in the west is over. Peace treaty was signed in secret. Information classified. It will 2 in 3 weeks. When the price to weapons steel will plummet to 40%. Weapons steel. House Ashford, 60% of the market. If steel falls to 40%, Ashford will lose tens thousands gold. Cale sits and thinks. This opportunity, a huge opportunity. Not for making money, for strike. If you play correctly, you can weaken Ashford exactly in that moment when he is his move against the Union. But this is dangerous, to play against Lorenz Ashford, a man who 20 years has been his web. Kyle calls Lillian and Marcus. Meeting in the basement, the office Nolan Trade. 3 people at the table, 1 candle. Kyle explains the situation. Steel will fall. Ashford will suffer. Question how to use it. Lillian offers legal blow. She knows the internal structure of Ashford. She knows weak contracts. If steel drops several of Ashford's, Ashford will want leave from long-term contracts. Penalties will become cheaper than the contracts under old prices. These customers will look a new supplier. Nolan Trade does manufacture steel, but Nolan Trade can become the middleman. Connect dissatisfied customers Ashford with small manufacturers who are willing to sell cheaper. Marcus adds, there are 4 small workshops in the Southern Road. They produce weapons, steel of quality, cheaper than Ashford, but not have access to major customers. Nolan Trade can become that bridge. Kyle approves. The plan is underway. 3 weeks before the collapse, Lillian is making a list of Ashford with the vulnerable contracts. 12 companies. Of them, 5 are actually ready to the transition. Marcus contacts with Blacksmith Forge, negotiates on preliminary terms. Nolan Trade serves as a guarantor quality and charges a 15%. Thor is planning the delivery routes. Everything is quiet. Everything is arranged in advance. Just like on the stock market, the position is open before the market even knows. Meanwhile, Cale continues to work with the houses. Victoria. The beauty salon brings in a steady income. Debt refinancing is underway. Through a front lawyer, Lillian found a lender willing to offer 5% instead of 8%. The interest savings amount to about 2,000 gold pieces a year. Victoria calls Cale in for a talk once a week. No longer an order, an invitation. They discuss the numbers, strategies. Victoria asks for his opinion. He listens. He doesn't always agree. He often argues, but he listens. Kyle notices that she has stopped clenching her napkin at dinners. Her fingers are relaxed. Her back is still straight, but her shoulders are slightly lower. The system is updating. Victoria Valentine. Loyalty to the subject. Average. Change over 3 months. Significant increase. Dominant perception. Partner. Partner. Not passive. Not a piece of furniture. Partner. Isabel. Talver reconnaissance complete. Full report confirms the scale of the deposit. Extraction will begin in 6 months. But already, Isabel has changed. At Thursday dinners, she no longer calls him her husband. She doesn't joke around. She doesn't ignore him. She talks to him. About the mines, about the ore, about iron prices. Professionally, as an equal. Once, after dinner, she detains him. She says her people have halted the Nolan Trade investigation. On her orders. She doesn't explain why. She simply informs him. Cale nods. He understands. It's gratitude, not in words, in action. She has removed the threat. The system updates. Isabel Caldera. Loyalty to subject. Average. Defensive behavior. Activated. Isabel has begun to protect Cale. Not openly, but she shut down the investigation that could have exposed him. This is more than respect. Selena. Quiet Selena. She continues to smile, but behind the smile now lies not control, but anticipation. She is waiting for Cale to fulfill his promise, to terminate the contract with Ashford. 6 months, he said. 3 have passed. 3 remain. Cale is working on it. The plan is complicated. The Montero-Ashford contract cannot simply be terminated. The penalty is 20,000 gold pieces. Montero doesn't have that kind of money. They need a workaround. Lillian is studying the contract, looking for legal loopholes. She finds one. A small one. Clause 12, paragraph 6. Force majeure. If the market price of crystals changes by more than 30% from the base value, the contract is automatically revised. 30%. Crystals have risen by 22% over the last 6 months. 8% left to reach the threshold. If Cale can raise the price by another 8%, the contract will be revised. Penalties are waived. Montero is freed from bondage. How to raise the price of crystals by 8%? Create a shortage. How to create a shortage? Buy up the stockpiles. How much is needed? The system calculates. To create a noticeable shortage, approximately 15% of the available volume must be removed from the market. The cost of the operation is about 12,000 gold. Nolan Trade has the money. But the operation is risky. If someone notices the buying spree too early, the price will spike too sharply. Or, conversely, a major supplier could dump their stock onto the market and derail the plan. Cale thinks it over for 3 days. Then he begins to act. Not alone. Through the network. Marcus coordinates 8 intermediaries. Each buys small batches of crystals. Different grades, different regions. No single purchase attracts attention. Individually. Together, it's 15% of the market. The operation lasts 4 weeks. Quietly, methodically. Like a sniper assembling a rifle one part at a time. At the same time, what Cale predicted is happening in the arms steel market. News of the peace treaty reaches the exchanges. Steel prices plummet. Not 40% at once. First 15, then 25. Panic grows. Ashford's clients are getting nervous. Lillian gets to work. 5 companies on the list receive offers from Nolan Trade. Alternative steel suppliers. Cheaper, more reliable, flexible terms. 3 out of 5 agree. They switch from Ashford to small blacksmiths through Nolan Trade's intermediary services. 15% commission. Total contract volume, 8,000 gold pieces a year. Nolan Trade's net profit, 1,200 gold pieces annually. Not a one-time deal. Ongoing. But the main thing isn't the money. The main thing is that Ashford has lost 3 clients, and he doesn't know to whom. Nolan Trade isn't mentioned directly anywhere. All contracts go through intermediaries. All traces are covered up. Lorenz Ashford sits in his office. A report lies before him. 3 clients have left. Steel prices are falling. Quarterly profits have dropped by 27%. He moves a piece on the chessboard. A white queen, he thinks. Someone is working against him. Not Valentine. They're too weak. Not Caldera. They're too straightforward. Not Montero. He's got them on the hook. Someone new. Lorenz pulls an old report out of a drawer. Nolan Trade. He reads it again. A small company. Rapid growth. Owner Marcus Gray. A former alcoholic. Lorenz makes a note. Check thoroughly. In a week, a complete dossier will be on his desk. Cale doesn't know this yet, but the time of invisibility is coming to an end. 10th month. First year is to an end. Kyle sits in the basement of Nolan Trade and looks at map of the Empire. Pins. The red are transit points. The blue are clients. Green are allies. Black are threats. Red pins 15. Blue more than 70. Green 3. Marcus, Lillian, Thor. Black 2. Council of the Lords. And Lorenz Ashford. Capital Nolan Trade. 90,000 gold. Another a little and he will surpass annual income of some small companies. The system updates the rank. Merchant. Progress to merchant. 94%. Soon. Kyle feels this. The threshold is nearby. Morning forecast. 2 signals. First, crystals. Growth. 26% of base. The buyback is working. Another 4% to the threshold. Another week. Maybe 2. Second alarm. System-wide. Not commodity. New function is flashing at edge of the interface. Unlock upon reaching rank merchant. Preliminary name. Auction influences. Description. Not available until activation. Kyle is putting it off. First current tasks. Lillian arrives with news. Bad news. The House Lords appointed hearings on Trinity Union. Through 2 months. A formal pretext. Verification compliance and ancient law, current commercial code. A real reason. Someone in the council wants to annul the union. Lillian says that 5 of 7 members of the council must vote in retention. Currently, the situation is as follows. 2 for preservation, 2 against. 3 have undecided. Two against these representatives, Ashford and Raymond. Ashford is clear, Raymond too. If the union falls apart, Raymond, as a creditor, will be able to take assets Valentine in to offset the debt. Profitable. Two for this representatives, Valentine and Caldera. That makes sense. They union. Three undecided are independent lords, minor houses. They don't. They will vote for that who offers more. You need 3 votes out 3, or, although at 2. To get 5 saves, save. Kyle counts. 3 independent lords. Each must offer something. What exactly? The system doesn't show. This is a market. This politics. We need information. Lillian can get it. She has still contacts in the community. She knows who she wants. Kyle sets the task. Lillian leaves. Marcus enters. He with news. Bad, bad. Dossier. People Ashford are checking. Nolan trade. Not superficially, deeply. They survey suppliers, customers, former employees. They look for owner, current owner. Marcus says that his cover is solid. On paper, he founder and sole beneficiary. But people Ashford do believe the papers. They believe in money. And money. Nolan trade is too fast for an alcoholic without capital. Kyle thinks. It takes time. 2 weeks until that before the crystals reaches the threshold. 2 months until the hearings before council. Ashford digs. If he discover the connection between 2 Nolan, the trade before the hearings is the end. It uses this as proof that a man is acting against the interests of the house. The council annuls union. 3 houses will remain without protection. Ashford will buy up the wreckage. Kale summons Thor, gives a task. Find out who exactly of people in is the investigation. Names, routes, methods. Thor knows the port world. Smugglers know everyone. Thor leaves. He returns in 3 days with information. The investigation is led by Pharos Kane, a private detective, the best in town. He's worked for Ashford for 15 years, methodical, patient, incorruptible. Not because he's honest, because Ashford pays the most. Kale activates the deal portrait, Pharos Kane. It doesn't work. Too far away. The system requires visual contact or at least being in the same room. A face-to-face meeting is needed. Risky. Kale puts it off. There are more important matters. Crystals. The buying spree continues. 28% of the base price. Another 2%. The market is starting to take notice. The price of crystals has been rising for 3 weeks now. Small traders are getting nervous. The big players aren't reacting yet, but they will soon. Selena sends a note, a short one. 1 word. When? Kale replies, soon. A week passes. Crystals reach 30% of the base price. The threshold has been crossed. Clause 12, paragraph 6 is activated. Automatic contract revision. Lillian files a notice on behalf of a front law firm, formally, to the letter of the law. The Ashford house receives notice of a contract revision with the Montero house. Grounds. A change in market conditions of more than 30%. Penalties are waived. The contract is subject to revision under new terms, or termination. Lorenz Ashford reads the notice. He rereads it. His expression doesn't change, but the hand holding the paper trembles slightly. He checks the crystal market. A 30% increase in a month. Unnatural. Someone was buying up the market, methodically, through intermediaries. Someone who knew about Clause 12. Someone who had access to the contract text. Lorenz places the paper on the table. He picks up a chess piece. A black bishop. He twirls it between his fingers. Someone is playing against him. Not openly, from the shadows. Nolan trade, the Montero contract, lost steel clients. These aren't coincidences. This is a strategy. Lorenz calls Pharos Kane. He says that Nolan trade is now priority number 1. Find the real owner, at any cost. Cain leaves. Lorenz sits down at the chessboard. For the first time in 20 years, he sets up the pieces for a game against a real opponent, not against himself. Cain receives a message from Selina. She has come to the Montero garden, the same place where they first met. She stands by the pond. Her face is wet. Not from the water in the fountain. She has been crying. The contract has been terminated. The Montero house is free. 5 years of bondage have been annulled by a single legal notice. She turns to Kale. For the first time, without a smile, with a genuine expression. She says she doesn't know how to thank him. Kyle says there is a way. A vote in the council in 2 months. The Monteros need to vote to preserve the union. Selina says they will vote. Definitely. Kyle nods. Then he says there's something else. 3 independent lords. Selina knows them. She's been the daughter of a great house for 23 years. She's been attending receptions since she was 10. She knows what everyone wants. Selina thinks. Then she speaks. Lord Tanner wants a trade route through the Western Gate. A monopoly is his dream. Lord Westgate wants a seat on the Guild Council for his son. Lord Duran just wants money. Lots of money. Kale takes notes. Trade route, seat on the council, money. 3 prices for 3 votes. The route. Kale can arrange that. Nolan Trade has contacts in the port administration. Through Thor, the smuggler knows all the ins and outs. A seat on the council. More complicated. But Lillian can pull some legal strings. Caldera has influence in the Guild Council, if Isabel helps. Money. Kale has the money, 59,000, but paying directly is a bribe, and a bribe is grounds for losing a vote. It has to be done neatly. A contract to supply goods from Lord Duran through Nolan Trade, with a guaranteed profit, legally. Kayla begins to piece together the puzzle. 3 lords, 3 prices, 2 months. The system flashes. Rank updated. Merchant. New features unlocked. Auction of influence. Reveals hidden connections and dependencies between key market figures. Who owes whom? Who fears whom? Who is in cahoots with whom? And one more feature. Deal profile. Maximum level. Now shows not only current motives, but also the subject's long-term goals. Strategic planning. Behavior prediction months in advance. Kale activates the auction of influence at the Council of Trading Lords. The map flares up. Lines of connection, debts, fears, obligations. He sees everything. And one line glows brighter than the rest. Lorenz Ashford, Lord Duran. A hidden obligation. Duran owes Ashford a favor, an old one, a big one. If Ashford demands it, Duran will vote against the union, for free. So money won't help. Something else is needed. Kale clenches his fists. 3 votes. 1 is already under Ashford's control. That means he needs the other 2. Tanner and Westgate. No other options. Kale closes the interface. The 10th month. The clock is ticking. Ashford is looking for him. The council is looking for a reason. The 3 wives don't know the whole truth yet. And somewhere in the basement of the Imperial Bank lies a 200-year-old letter. A letter from the last person who possessed the system. Kale doesn't know about it yet, but he'll find out soon. The 11th month. Kyle feels as the noose tighten, with both sides. Pharaoh's Cain is working, methodically, like a machine. Every day he interviews someone new person. Nolan's Nolan Trade, clients, landlords of warehouses, owner of the warehouse where Kale the first rolls of silk. Marcus reports that Cain has come to Nolan's Nolan Trade looking on behalf of a client. Asked questions to the secretary. Who is the founder? Where the capital? Who makes strategic decisions? The secretary replied for instructions. Marcus Gray, founder and sole managing partner. Cain doesn't believe it, but for now doesn't prove it. For now. Kyle decides, take action. We can't wait until Cain gets to the truth. We need to meet with him and activate portrait transactions. Find weak spot. He asks Tor to arrange a casual encounter. Thor is pleased. Tavern in the district. Kane stops by here every Thursday. On Thursdays, it's a habit. 1 glass of wine, reading newspapers. It takes in an hour. Kyle arrives earlier. He sits down across 2 tables. He waits. Kane enters, lean, fit, 50-50, gray eyes, neat goatee, dressed simply but expensively. He sits down, orders wine, opens the newspaper. Kyle activates deal deals. Pharos Kane, dominant motif, professional reputation, secondary motive, financial stability, hidden vulnerability, daughter, 16 years old, suffering with fever. Treatment is expensive, 2 gold per year. Kane works for Ashford not out of loyalty, out of necessity. Strategic observation. The subject has professional ethics. Do not fabricate evidence. We'll find only what that is there. The line. Don't accept direct bribes. We'll accept as an insult. Kyle closes the interface. He thinks, Kane can't be bought. You can't be intimidated. He professional. He'll get the truth sooner or later. It's dud of time. But the portrait revealed something important. Professional ethics. Kane will find only that is. Nothing more. So we need for what we have to be insufficient. Cale returns to the office. He calls Lillian. He says a legal restructuring is needed, a complete one. Nolan Trade must be split up. 3 separate companies, different owners, different licenses, connected only through shared clients. On paper, these are 3 independent businesses. Marcus Gray owns the logistics company. One of the clerks owns the trading house. Tor Vincent owns the transportation company. Nolan Trade ceases to exist as a single brand. Marcus resists. He says they spent 2 years building that name. Cale says the name can be rebuilt. The company crushed by Ashford cannot. Lillian works for 3 days. The documents are ready. Nolan Trade quietly dissolves. In its place, 3 companies emerge. Gray Logistics, Eastern Trading Yard, Vincent Transport Company. The capital is distributed. Clients have been transferred. Everything is legal. Everything is clean. When Pharos Kane comes looking for Nolan Trade, he'll find an empty shell. The company is closed. Owner Marcus Gray has gone into business for himself. Connection to Kane Nolan, not found. Because formally, it doesn't exist. Kane is good, but he's looking for a tree. And Cale has turned that tree into a forest. At the same time, Cale is working on the council's votes. Lord Tanner, the trade route through the West Gate. Through Thor, Cale finds out that the West Gate is controlled by the Port Administration. Port Director Carlos Vega. Corrupt, venal, but cautious. He won't give up the monopoly just like that. We need leverage. The system shows. Influence auction. Carlos Vega, hidden obligation. Owes the House of Calder for an ore transport contract. An old debt. Isabel can apply pressure. Kyle goes to see Isabel. Not for dinner, during the day, to her office. Isabel is surprised but lets him in. Kyle explains the situation. The council, the vote. We need Tanner's vote. Tanner wants the route. The route depends on Vega. Vega owes Caldera. If Isabel puts pressure on Vega, Vega will give the route to Tanner. Tanner will vote for the union. Isabel listens. Then she leans back in her chair. She says he came to ask her to save the union, which has tied her to 2 women she can't stand. Kyle says the alliance isn't about women. It's about survival. Without the alliance, Caldera is alone against Ashford. With the new mine on Talvera, which Ashford will gladly take if Caldera is left without allies. Isabel is silent. Then she nods. She says she'll put pressure on him. 1 vote. Tanner, Lord Westgate. A seat on the Guild Council for his son. That's more complicated. The Guild Council isn't under the control of the trading houses. They have their own rules. their own elections. Lillian studies the charter. She finds a loophole. Every year, one house can nominate a candidate for the guild council. The nomination doesn't guarantee a seat, but it opens the door. Next comes a vote among the guild members. If the candidate receives the support of at least 3 guilds, they pass. Cale goes to Victoria. The House of Valentine has the right to nominate this year. Victoria usually doesn't exercise it. No candidate. No interest. Cale suggests nominating Lord Westgate's son. Victoria asks why. Cale explains. The council. The vote. We need Westgate's vote. Victoria understands immediately. She's not stupid. She sees the scheme. Calder gives Tanner the route. Valentine nominates Westgate's son. 2 votes for the union. She asks what Montero is offering. Cale says Montero has already cast his vote, a long time ago. Victoria looks at him. A long, attentive gaze. She says he controls 3 houses, like a puppeteer. Cale says he's not a puppeteer. He's a coordinator. The difference is that puppets don't know they're being controlled, but Victoria does. Victoria smiles, subtly, almost warmly. She says she's nominating. 2 votes, Tanner and Westgate, plus Valentine and Caldera, 4. We need a 5th. Montero. Selina promised. 5 out of 7, enough to preserve the union, even if Ashford and Raymond vote against it, even if Duran is under Ashford's control. Cale exhales, for the first time in a week, but it's too early to breathe easy. A month until the hearings, and Lorenz Ashford isn't the kind of man who loses in silence. The end of the 11th month. Pharos Kane reports to Lorenz. Nolan Trade has been dissolved. In its place are 3 small companies. A connection to Kane Nolan has not been confirmed. But, Kane adds, Marcus Gray, a former alcoholic, had no capital, no connections, and no motive. 2 years ago, he slept above a tavern. Now he runs a logistics company with capital of 20,000 gold pieces. Someone is backing him. Kane hasn't found out who, but he found out when. Gray's rise began exactly 2 months after the wedding of the Triune Union. Coincidence? Or not? Lorenz listens. He thinks. Then he says one word. Husband. Kane raises an eyebrow. Lorenz explains. Kyle Nolan, a rootless laborer, an empty vessel, a puppet, whom Lorenz himself chose and planted among the 3 houses, who was supposed to be a nobody, and who may well be the owner of a shadow trading empire. Lorenz stands up. He walks over to the chessboard. He picks up a pawn, a small white pawn. He looks at it. Then he places it on the 8th rank, where the pawn becomes a queen. For the first time in 20 years, Lorenz Ashford loses a game to himself. 12th month. Year. Exactly a year since that day when Cale stood at the altar and didn't know the names of wives. Now he doesn't do just the names. He knows their fears, their secrets, their strength, and they begin to discover it. Capital of companies in total, 71,000 gold coins. 8% of the market presence through intermediary contracts. Marcus manages Gray Logistics as a clockwork mechanism. Tor expanded the fleet. 2 ships now. The second purchased for profit from flights. Lillian had a network of contacts which themselves come to her for advice. Before the hearings, the council 3 weeks. Everything is ready. 5 votes are secured. Tanner has secured his route. Westgate has secured a nomination for his son. Montero will vote for the union. Valentine and Caldera will too. Cale should be calm. But he isn't, because Lorenz Ashford is too quiet. 3 weeks and not a single move. No pressure, no threats. That's not Ashford's style. A silent Ashford is an Ashford preparing to strike. Cale activates the influence auction every day, scans the connections, looks for movement. Nothing. Silence. Like the calm before the storm. Tuesday. Dinner at the Valentines. Cale arrives and senses it immediately. Something is wrong. Victoria is tense. Her mother, who usually sits to the right, is absent. The steward is pale. The servants are nervous. After dinner, Victoria calls Cale. Into the study. She closes the door. She speaks. Raymond House has demanded early repayment of the loan. The entire debt. 79,000 gold pieces. 30 days to pay. Otherwise, Raymond will seize Valentine House's assets to cover the debt. Production facilities, warehouses, the dyeing workshop, everything. Cale stands motionless. Here it is. Ashford's blow. Not a direct one. Through Raymond. The bankers demanded early repayment. It's legal. There's a clause in the contract about early repayment. Lorenz knew about that clause. He helped insert it himself. 20 years ago. Victoria says the house doesn't have that kind of money. The refinancing isn't complete. The new lender isn't ready. It takes time. Which there isn't. Cale does the math. 79,000. His 3 companies have a total of 71. If he gives it all away, everything he's built over the past year, every penny, it won't be enough. It'll be 8,000 short. He can't save Valentine with money. He needs another way. Cale thinks all night. By morning, he finds it. Not money. Time. He needs to challenge Raymond's demand. Legally. Drag it out. Let the refinancing go through. Lillian. He calls her at dawn. He explains the situation. Lillian reads the Valentine loan contract. She finds a loophole. The clause on early repayment is valid only if the borrower has missed a payment. Valentine hasn't. All payments were on time. Every month, without exception. Raymond's demand is illegal, technically. Lillian files a counterclaim on behalf of a front law firm, representing the interests of the House of Valentine. Victoria is surprised. Where did the lawyer come from? Cale says he found him. He doesn't explain. Victoria doesn't press the issue. Now is not the time for questions. The claim is accepted by the commercial court. Hearing in 6 weeks. Raymond's claim is frozen pending the court's decision. 30 days turn into 6 weeks, plus an appeal, plus a review. In reality, Valentine gets 3 to 4 months, enough time to refinance. Ashford didn't expect legal resistance. Valentine has never been known for its lawyers. Where did they come from all of a sudden? Lorenz receives news of the counterclaim. He reads it, rereads it. The law firm of Weiss and Partners. Weiss. Lillian Weiss, a former Ashford employee, fired for honesty. Now she's working for someone connected to Valentine and to Nolan Trade. Lorenz connects the dots. Cale Nolan, Marcus Gray, Lillian Weiss. A shadow network. Legal protection for Valentine. The termination of Montero's contract. Lost steel clients. One hand. One mind. A rootless laborer. A puppet he himself put on the board. Lorenz makes a decision. Enough playing in the shadows. Time for an open strike. The council hearing is in 2 weeks. Lorenz is preparing a presentation. Not about the union's legality, about Kyle Nolan, about the shadow empire that the husband of the 3 houses built behind their backs, about the conflict of interest, about the manipulation of the 3 great houses. It's a bombshell. If Lorenz presents the evidence to the council, the 3 wives will find out everything. At the same time, publicly, in front of the entire commercial elite of the empire. The council will have grounds to annul the union, not for formal reasons, for factual ones. The husband deceived his wives, he manipulated the houses, he built a personal empire. This is a breach of trust. This is a breach of contract. Cale learns of Ashford's plan 5 days before the hearings. The system issues an emergency update. The influence auction shows a sharp change in Lorenz Ashford's behavior. Active preparation for a public appearance. Gathering documents. Contacts with Pharos Kane. The final dossier. Cale reads the data and feels the ground slipping from under his feet. Ashford knows. Not everything, but enough. The connection to Marcus, the connection to Lillian, shadow companies, manipulation of the crystal market. If this comes up at the council, the end. Cale sits in the darkness of his small room. He thinks. He calculates. He looks for a way out. There is no way out. Ashford is too powerful for a direct confrontation. Denial is useless. The evidence is there. There is nowhere to run. The contract binds him to the 3 houses. There is only one option left. The truth. Not at the council. Before that. The 3 wives must hear it from him, not from Ashford. If they hear it from Lorenz, it's betrayal. If from Cale, it's a confession. The difference between a knife in the back and an open wound. Both hurt, but an open wound can be treated. Cale stands up, writes 3 notes, identical. An invitation. Tomorrow. Neutral territory. The Trade Guild's dining hall. 3 wives, 1 husband, 1 truth. The notes are sent. Cale lies down on the bed. He doesn't sleep. Dining. Dining. Dining guild. Private office. 4 chairs, 1 table. Kyle came first. He sat down, his hands on the table, calm, inside a storm. Victoria comes second. She sees an empty office. He sits across from him. He looks at him, silently. Isabel the third, noisily, sees Victoria, freezes for a second, then sits down, crosses her arms. Selina last, quiet, a smile, that same smile. But Kyle sees that her are anxious. She feels something. 4 people at the table, first time. Not at a formal reception, not at ceremony, in person, without entourage, without servants, without witnesses. Isabel speaks first. She asks why he gathered them. Kyle remains silent for seconds, then begins. He says that in 4 days at hearings of the Lorenz, Ashford will speak with a revelation. He will present the evidence that Cale Nolan is of 3 houses secretly built a network, what he manipulated the markets, that he influenced on decisions of house. Silence. Victoria doesn't move. Isabel slowly lowers her hands. Selina stops smiling. Kyle continues. He says that Ashford is right. It's true. Nolan Trade is him. Marcus Gray his manager. Lillian Weiss his lawyer. 3 companies that are operate in the market. These are fragments of a single web. He wove it over the course of a year, from 90 silver coins. Isabel stands up. The chair creaks. She says he lied. Every Thursday, every dinner, he looked her in the eyes and lied. Cale says he didn't lie. He didn't tell the whole truth. The difference is subtle, but it exists. Isabel says there is no difference. Victoria raises her hand, a gesture, brief, authoritative. Isabel falls silent, a habit of submitting to gestures of authority. Victoria doesn't even notice she did it. Victoria asks quietly, "The note, the caravan through Kerr Valley, it was him." Cale nods. Victoria asks more questions. The dyeing workshop, the idea of direct purchasing, the audit, hidden debt, refinancing. The lawyer who challenged Raymond's claim, it was all him. Cale nods. Victoria leans back in her chair. She is silent. Isabel picks up the thread. Mount Talver, the deposit, data on the mines, information about the miners Ashford is poaching. That's him too. Cale nods. Selina is silent. She knew more than the rest, but even she didn't know the full extent. Cale continues. He talks about the Montero contract with Ashford, about how he bought up crystals to drive the price up to the force majeure threshold, about how he tore up the exploitative deal that was slowly killing the House of Montero. Selina closes her eyes, opens them. There's a glint in them. She presses her lips together and looks out the window. Cale talks about the main thing, about Lorenzo Ashford, about the 20-year plan, about how Ashford helped the three houses find Cale, a puppet, an empty vessel, about how Ashford convinced Raymond to raise the interest rate on Valentine's loan, about how Ashford poached miners from Caldera, about how Ashford forced Montero to sign a draconian contract. 3 houses, 3 nooses, 1 puppeteer. Isabel sits down, slowly. Her anger shifts direction. She no longer looks at Cale. She looks at the table. She thinks. Victoria asks why he did all this, why he built the network, why he helped, why he took the risk. Cale is silent. He's preparing his answer. About selfishness, about self-preservation, about how if the domes go down, he goes down with them. A rational answer, logical. But he looks at the 3 faces in front of him. Victoria, who called him husband for the first time. Isabel, who stopped the investigation to protect him. Selina, who cried by the pond when the contract was terminated. And he tells the truth. He says that in the beginning, yes, selfishness, self-preservation, calculation. He's a trader. He sees the market. He sees the position. He plays to win. But then something changed. He doesn't know when. Maybe when Victoria showed him the financial reports, trusted him, the first time in years. Maybe when Isabel said he sees numbers, not dirt. Maybe when Selina stood by the pond with a wet face. He says the house of Valentine. The debt is being paid off. Refinancing is underway. The dye house is turning a profit. The house of Caldera. The Talvera deposit. 20 years of production. The crisis is over. The Montero house. The contract with Ashford is terminated. The crystals are selling at market price again. He says he wasn't cheating. He was investing. In them. Silence. A long one. Isabel breaks it first. She says it's the craziest business plan she's ever heard. Marry 3 companies and secretly fix all 3. She isn't laughing, but there's no anger in her voice. Something else. Maybe confusion. Maybe respect. Selina speaks quietly. She says she knew part of it, but she didn't know he was helping all 3. She thought he was helping only her, because she asked first. It turns out that wasn't the case. He was helping everyone, from the very beginning. Victoria is silent the longest. Then she stands up. She walks over to the window. She stands with her back to them. She says that in 4 days, Ashford will tell the council all of this. As a betrayal. As manipulation. And the council will believe it. Because facts are facts. Her husband secretly built an empire behind his wives' backs. It doesn't matter why. The fact is what matters. Cale says he knows. That's why he gathered them. They had to be the first to know. The rest is up to them. If they want, they can speak out against him at the council, confirm Ashford's words, renounce him, save the house's reputation. He won't resist. Victoria turns around. She looks at him, for a long time. Then she says she has a question, but not for her husband, for Lord Ashford. Cale freezes. Isabel raises her head. Selina looks at Victoria. Victoria says that Ashford has been destroying their houses for 20 years. He raised the interest rate on the Valentine loan. He poached Caldera's miners. He forced Montero to sign a draconian contract. And now he wants to play the champion of justice, to accuse the husband who put a stop to all of this. Victoria says no. She won't play by Ashford's rules. Isabel stands up. She says she agrees. She owes Kyle a mine for 20 years. She pays her debts. Always. Selina nods, quietly, but firmly. 3 wives, 3 houses, 1 decision. Kyle stands and feels something warm rising inside him. Not a trader's thrill. Something else. Something he's never had, not in this life or the last. He pushes the feeling aside. Later. Work comes first. He says they need a plan for the hearing. Ashford will strike. They must strike back. And he has the means to do so. The four of them sit down at the table, together for the first time, as allies for the first time. The work goes on late into the night, the day of the hearing, council of the Fluss of chamber of round table. 7 chairs for lords, gallery for observers, full hall. All the community of Velkrand came to watch. Trinity Union, ancient law, first application to 200 years, and the first attempt to annul it. Kyle is at the entrance. New suit, dark fabric, sleek cut. Lillian insisted. Next to Marcus. Thor at the wall. Lillian in gallery with a folder of documents. 3 wives enter together, for the first time. Victoria on the left, Isabel on the right, Selena in the center. The room falls silent. The 3 heirs of the great houses stand side by side. Not through my husband, nearby. This a sight of which Velkrand did see. Lorenz Ashford had there the number 4, straight back, calm face, beside his lawyers, folders, documents. Pharaoh's cane in gallery, ready. The hearings are beginning. The head of the Lord Chief Referee opens the session. Agenda. Review the legality the Fluss of the Union within the current trade code. First hour. Formalities. Lawyers of the council read the history of the law. 200 years. The last application. Legal status. Current but not applied. Kyle listens. He waits. Another hour. Lorenz Ashford asks to speak. The referee grants it. Lorenz stands up. Slowly. Every movement is calculated. 20 years of Smalth for this moment. He says that has not to challenge the law. The law is the law. It came to challenge its application. Specific application. Therefore that A, of the 3 houses, Cale Nolan turned out to be not the, for he. The hall is buzzing. Lorenz raises his hand. Silence. He explains, methodically, like a prosecutor. Nolan trading network built by my husband of 3 houses in secret from his wives. Capital, tens thousands gold coins. Origin is unclear. Connections with internal affairs of 3 houses. Manipulations of the crystals. Buying up ahead arise prices. Poaching customers Ashford. Ashford through front intermediaries. Use confidential information houses in personal purposes. Each point is supported by documents. Pharos. Kane did well, not perfectly. There are gaps in the file, but the overall picture is convincing. Lorenz concludes. He says that Cale Nolan is not an empty vessel. He is a parasite. He has infiltrated the 3 houses and is using them as a feeding ground for his own empire. The union must be annulled. The husband must be removed. Assets must be confiscated. The hall buzzes. The arbitrator bangs the gavel. Silence. The arbitrator asks if either party wishes to respond. Victoria Valentine stands. The hall falls silent. Victoria Valentine, head of the House of Valentine, cold, precise, unyielding. She walks to the center of the hall. Her heels click on the stone, every step measured. She stops, looks at Lorenz, then at the council. Says she has a question. Not for her husband, for Lord Ashford. Lorenz tilts his head slightly. Victoria asks, does the council know that the interest rate on the Valentine House loan at Raymond House was raised 3 points above the standard rate? On Lord Ashford's personal recommendation. A document from Lillian, a copy of Ashford's letter to the Raymond bankers, with a seal, with a signature. The room is silent. Lorenz remains motionless. Isabel stands up. She walks to the center. She stands next to Victoria. She says, does the council know that for the past 2 years the miners of the Calder House have been poached by the Steel Shield Company, a subsidiary of the Ashford House? Salaries are 30% higher. The goal is to weaken Caldera's production. Document. Steel Shield's employment contracts with former Caldera miners. 23 contracts, all signed in the last 2 years. Selina stands up, quietly. She walks to the center. She stands next to Victoria and Isabel, 3 women, shoulder to shoulder. Selina says that 4 months ago, the House of Montero signed a contract with the House of Ashford to supply crystals at a price 30% below market value, for a term of 5 years, with liquidation penalties. The contract was signed under pressure, under the threat that Ashford would vote in the council to dissolve the union. Document. The original contract, with Lorenz's notes in the margins, in his own handwriting. The room is dead silent, not a sound. Lorenz Ashford sits motionless. His face remains unchanged, but Cale sees it. The fingers of his right hand are clenching the armrest of the chair. His knuckles are white. Victoria continues. She says that Lord Ashford accuses the husband of the 3 houses of secret trading. It's true. The husband traded, secretly. And with the profits from that trade, he saved the Valentine caravan through the Kerr Valley. A saving of 3,700 gold. He proposed a dyeing workshop that brings in 4,000 gold a quarter. He found a hidden debt and initiated refinancing. He found a lawyer who stopped Raymond's illegal demand for early repayment. Isabel says her husband found a deposit on Mount Talver. 20 years of mining. House Calder is saved. Not by Ashford, not by the council, by a husband whom everyone considered a nobody. Selina says her husband has torn up the indentured contract with Ashford, legally, through the force majeure clause. The House of Montero is free. Victoria looks at the council. She says that Lord Ashford spent 20 years planning to destroy the 3 great houses. He found a husband of no lineage to serve as a puppet, to tear the union apart from within. He didn't expect the puppet to turn out smarter than the puppeteer. The hall erupts in whispers. The arbiter bangs his gavel. Silence. Lorenz stands up. Calm down. He says it's all just emotion. The documents regarding his interference could be forgeries. A copy of the letter, contracts, all of this can be contested. A fact remains a fact. The husband of the 3 houses secretly built a trading empire. That is a violation. The arbiter nods. He says that both sets of evidence will be verified, but now a vote is needed. The question: preserve the triune union or annul it? 7 votes. Ashford, against. Raymond, against. Valentine, 4. Caldera, 4. Lord Tanner, 4. The room holds its breath. Tanner has received the root. He votes in favor. Lord Westgate, in favor. His son has been nominated to the Guild Council. He votes in favor. 4 in favor, 2 against, 1 left. Lord Duran. Cale knows. Duran owes Ashford, an old debt, a hidden obligation. Ashford will demand it. Duran will vote against, 4-3. The alliance is preserved. But Lorenz turns to Duran. A single glance. Duran must understand. Duran stands, slowly, looks at Ashford, then at the 3 women in the center of the hall, then at the documents Lillian has laid out on the table. 20 years of manipulation, in black and white. Duran swallows hard, speaks. In favor. 5 in favor, 2 against. The union is preserved. The room exhales. Lorenz Ashford sits motionless. 5 seconds. 10. Then he stands up, adjusts his jacket, leaves the room. He doesn't look back. Pharos Kane in the gallery closes his notebook. He stands up. He follows his employer out. The arbitrator announces the decision. The triune union is confirmed as valid. Based on the evidence presented against the House of Ashford, a separate investigation is ordered. The hall empties. Cale stands by the wall. His 3 wives walk toward him. Victoria is first. She stops in front of him, looks at him, then extends her hand. He shakes it. Her hand is warm, the first touch in a year. Isabel slaps him on the shoulder, hard. She says that if he lies one more time, she'll personally break his nose. Then she smirks. Selena approaches last, silently. She takes his hand, squeezes it. Let's go. The four of them leave the room, together. 3 years later, Kyle stands on the balcony of the building. 4 floors, white stone, central shopping district. Best location in Velkrand. Sign above the entrance. Nolan Trade. Gold letters. Those same words that Marcus once called faded. Now, he is every merchant in the empire. 3 years. Much has changed. The by the against House Ashford lasted 8 months. Documents Lillian turned out impeccable. If you're interested in the continuation and how this manhwa ends, the final part of the story is already available on Patreon, and the link is in the description and pinned comment.